Welcome one, welcome all to the Bulls of Ball Street. We're back for this UFC 319 breakdown. We're traveling to beautiful Chicago, Illinois. So let's get into it with these prelims. Ton of fun fights. Um, yeah, we're fighting for a belt in this main event here at DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. What do you guys think about this main event? I think it should be a war.
I think it'll be
pretty cool. I think it has potential to be somewhat one-sided, but hopefully it's not for our sake.
I'm curious to hear your breakdown when we get to it. All right, but first we have, let's see, make sure I can get this to look nice. All right, there we go. Creed Silva versus Dione Barbosa. What should we expect?
Yeah, this is one of the newer fights on the card. Dione Barbosa stepped up on short notice. And Karine Silva, really powerful fighter for this division, good grappler, pretty much always moving around when she's on the ground. She's good both off her back and off the top. What I like about her grappling is she doesn't just hang out on her back, kind of like what we saw George Mangos do last night on Contender Series and throw up subs that just aren't there. She'll transition, she'll get on top if the subs aren't working from the bottom. She's definitely a finisher. 17 of her wins come by way of stoppage, pretty much a mixed bag of ground and pounds and submissions. Good clinch work. Basically, her main plan of attack is getting you to the cage and then ultimately dragging you down to the ground. She employs a wrestling heavy game plan. Last fight was a Vivian Araujo decision loss. Takedown defense just got kind of exposed there. Dione Barbosa, she's also a pretty good grappler in her own right. She's a judoka, so pretty decent striking, a lot of throws and slams, good clinch work, some trips, drags, what you kind of see from judo people. But also good in the clinch in the same sense that Karine is. Striking isn't super powerful, can be a bit sloppy at times, but in the same way that Silva is, she's looking to close the gap and kind of work in the clinch. And she's coming off a Diana Belbita submission win, who's not in the promotion anymore. Don't really rate that at all. Belbita was barely even a pro MMA fighter to begin with, or at least skill-wise, talent-wise. I am going to go with Karine Silva here. Hasn't had the same finishing success as she had regionally in the UFC, but she's super tough. She's a good grappler. I'm just going to lean her way. I'm not super confident about this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Karine Silva as well. I think she tends to start off fights well, and that can be kind of an uphill battle for her opponent when that happens, because it means you probably have to take some rounds in bulk towards the latter end of the fight. Like, you're going to need to win round 3. I don't think Barbosa's top control is anything special enough to stall out some of those first couple rounds, so I'm going to rock with Karine Silva as well. I think the line is probably pretty fair as well. I think this is probably a good parlay booster piece or something like that, or maybe you could find a exact result type of thing. But yeah,
I'd go with Silva by sub. At the short notice, should likely get it done. All right, on to the next one. We have Brian Battle versus Nursultan Ruziboev. Kind of surprised to see Battle to be any favorite in this one, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, this is a good fight, especially for second fight on the card. I feel like this could be higher up there if they wanted it to be, or at least I'm excited for this one more so than I normally am for these early prelims. But Nurse, basically been all hands in the UFC, but if you've watched his regional fights, he's also a nasty wrestler. Just hasn't really needed to use that in the octagon. But he can wrestle. That's kind of his main game plan when he is in trouble or when it's like a super competitive fight. Really good transitions on the ground, aggressive, looking for subs, good off the top and bottom. Also, a good striker, a little bit less, all gas, no brakes on the feet, a little bit more patient, will wait for his shots. Has a slightly negative striking differential. He did just knock out Eric McConaughey. Brian Battle, just a pressure first kind of guy. He's always moving, always on the front foot. Good ground game, good wrestling. Doesn't shoot a ton of takedowns, but he has them in his back pocket. He'll shoot them every once in a while, averages 0.77. Takedown accuracy is horrible at 17%. Seems to be, progressively getting better. See, he's relatively young. Like, I like the way he's improved through fights. He did just miss weight against Randy Brown, though. I'm going to go with Nurselton. I like Nurse here as an underdog. I think he's huge. I think he honestly could out-wrestle Brian Battle, out-grapple Brian Battle. I think he has enough to hang with him on the feet, even though Brian Battle's pretty high output. Nurse is kind of good at managing the pace of stand-up fights, and I think if he's under pressure, he'll go straight to the wrestling. So I think the size is going to be huge here. Nurse is 6'5", to Brian Battle's 6'1". I'm excited to see him mix it up a little bit more here potentially. I think this is a good dog spot.
Yeah, I'm on the Nurselton side as well. I think he has a fair amount of his own questions. A lot of his fights are ending early via stoppage. Looked really bad against Joaquin Buckley, but that's obviously a fair level of competition there, so it's nothing to be too upset over. I don't know. I think there's a lot to be seen about his ability. I don't know if we've fully seen it all. Versus Brian Battle, I think he's due for a loss. I feel like his ceiling is not crazy high, and I feel like he's kind of been fortunate to have survived as long as he has. So I think it's a spot where you can kind of sell high on a guy like Brian Battle who's gotten to this point, and that probably has led him to this matchmaking, but I don't know that he's necessarily ready for it. So I'm going to take the dog shot as well.
Yeah, I think we're all in sync on this one. I'm going to go with Nurselton by decision. I kind of want to go by sub, but I'm just going to play it safe with decision.
I could see a Nurselton sub.
All right. On to the next one. Edson Barbosa versus Drakkar Klose. What should we be expecting for this one?
Yep, old head battle here.
And actually, I see there's Alibi Peteris versus Joseph Morales.
Oh, is that new?
I'm guessing that's a new one. And then like Rodrigo Cezinando versus a to-be-announced opponent. Do we want to discuss those at all, or?
No, I figure we could skip them. I guess those have to be from today, like literally probably within the last couple of hours. So
sounds about right.
Are there any other updates we should be aware of? Or
that's the only ones that I saw.
Okay, sweet.
I figured I'd ask while I was scrolling through here on ESPN. Lots of fight for this card, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know. That's a ton of fights. What is that? 14 now? If those two are added?
I think so.
Wow.
Kind of nuts.
Cool. Okay, well, awesome. Well, maybe we'll drop a little short video this week breaking down those ones that we missed. But yeah, this is a battle of the old heads here. You got Drakkar with the Michigan border tattooed on his chest versus El Brasilero, Edson Barbosa. Edson, really good striker, still pretty fast, mobile for his age. He has a mixed bag, highlight reel of knockouts, submissions. Technically pretty sound. Not much in the way of offensive wrestling, but pretty good on the ground. BJJ black belt, can definitely submit you if he catches you in a bad position. Drakkar Klose, wrestling base, really good clean takedowns. Does have some issues with his takedown defense. Pretty decent boxing too. He's got power behind those hands, pretty fast, covers the distance and kind of leaps into his punches pretty well. He just got knocked out by Joel Alvarez, where he just got outstruck, but he did have a good takedown in that one. I'd say Edson's age is probably more apparent than Drakkar's is, but both of these guys are old, so it's like I'm not going to put a ton of stock into that just because Drakkar has also been battling injuries in the last couple of years. If Drakkar comes out and wrestles a ton, I think he could have a chance of just wearing down Edson Barbosa. These weight cuts are pretty huge for Edson. He's getting old, so there's a chance that he gasses out. But I don't think Barbosa is like really washed at all. He looks good for his age. Lost to Lerone Murphy and Bryce Mitchell recently, who are like high quality losses. I'm leaning Edson, not super confident in this one, just because he's the better striker. He's the better jiu-jitsu practitioner. I think Drakkar might have a bit of a cardio advantage here, so that's something to look out for, especially if he goes wrestle heavy.
Yeah, just because they're a similar age, there's a shockingly different amount of actual UFC fight experience. Edson Barbosa has the same amount of losses in the UFC as Drakkar Klose has total fights. I think you touched on some of those injuries and things like that, but I think that almost could be a good thing for Drakkar because there's less kind of miles on the body and stuff. Whereas if you're a 37-year-old who hasn't fought as much, I don't know that it affects you as much as a 39-year-old who's been through the ringer and kind of seen every ebb and flow of a UFC career and kind of been in spots where you can take more damage. Probably a pass for me. I'm not super excited about either side, not a crazy lean either way, but I would probably take Drakkar straight up in this one just for some of the reasons you touched on. I think Barbosa leaves himself open to being grappled at times, and Drakkar has enough intensity to be a guy that can make that a problem in a fight like this.
I'm just going to go with Barbosa by decision. I'm just not sold that he'd get a finish if he won, but I'm rather confident he'll get the win here. Mm-hmm. Just seems who Klose has lost into recently has been a bit more concerned. Being able to go 5 rounds against Lerone Murphy kind of dismisses the cardio concerns for me.
Yeah.
But on to the next one. All right, Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez. I mean, Chase Hooper, I feel like his Marvel comp would be Spider-Man. That's just what he reminds me of.
I can see that.
Big time.
Totally.
He used to run the Ben Askren is my dad gimmick. He does look very similar.
Yeah, I like this matchup. This should be a fun one, and I've kind of gone back and forth on who I like here. Do you guys know the odds?
It's minus 330 for Hooper.
Yeah,
minus 330 for Hooper. Wow, that's pretty good odds on the Alexander Hernandez side of things. But I think this is going to be a good opportunity to see where both of these guys are at, depending on who wins. No matter who wins, it's going to be a really good test for both of these guys. Both these guys are on good streaks here. Hooper is a little bit longer, but Alexander, super well-rounded guy, very explosive. Wrestling is phenomenal, very powerful, fast, very clean doubles. He is coming off a decision win over Kurt Hollabaugh, where he was just getting outstruck pretty bad on the feet, needed to transition to the wrestling pretty quickly. He's a bit small, depending on his opponent. Probably won't be. I mean, he'll be pretty small here against Chase Hooper. But Hooper, 5-fight win streak now. Definitely has been getting better and better each fight. Also, so young. Looks like he's just been growing into his own body, sort of physically even recently, which is good to see. Takedown seemed to have improved. Definitely not super small at all at 6'1" here. Coming off that grappling-oriented win over Jim Miller. And like I said, I think this is a good matchup here. Alexander has really good takedown defense, and obviously Chase is going to need to get the takedowns here to get the win. Obviously, Alexander Hernandez has the wrestling upside on his side as well. I'm going to slight lean Chase just because he has the height, he has the BJJ, and I think that might work well for him here against Alexander. Hernandez to win, I think basically we'll just need to close the distance right away, get to Chase's legs. And, there's a good chance that he's going to be tentative to shoot because of how good Chase Hooper is on the ground. So that's a factor. I think what it's going to look like is probably Hernandez trying to strike while Chase is trying to get it to the ground. I think Chase should be able to get it there at some point. Chase by sub is what I'll go with, just for fun.
Yeah, I looked into that 71% number, and it's kind of a little bit skewed based on the fact that he defended 12 out of 12 takedowns from Austin Hubbard in a fight. If you remove that, it's looking at 56%. So a big time difference in that number. Also, it seems like Hernandez in rounds 2 and 3 is a wildly different fighter than he is in round 1. He can get some of those cardio issues, and it feels like he doesn't really grow into a fight all that well. He's given up more takedowns in those rounds. I think looking at potentially like a Chase Hooper finish in round 2 or 3 line, if you can find one of those, could be a potential lean to get some actual value out of this. I think he totally could finish this one inside the distance. It will probably end inside the distance regardless of who wins this one. But I think if he can just survive past round 1, where if he gets some striking exchanges, it could go poorly for Chase Hooper. But if he gets through there, I think a sub for him is pretty wide open.
Sorry, I kind of got lost. I was looking at Jared Cannonier's profile and thinking about what I'm going to say there. But Chase Hooper by sub.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like he's Spider-Man, bro. Like he's awesome at this point. Jessica Andrade versus Lupi Godinez. What should we be expecting here?
Yeah, this is a fun one. I'm a pretty, as far as, I mean, only very few female MMA fighters that I'm a big fan of. I do like Lupi Godinez. Weili, another one I'm a big fan of, but that's besides the point. Andrade, though, definitely a force to be reckoned with. She is a former world champ, just an absolute bully. Nothing really there technique-wise, but the output is kind of crazy. She lands 6.39 strikes a minute, absorbs 5.49. She's very powerful. She's very big. Most of the time, especially in the fights that she's winning, it's against opponents that she can like just absolutely bully around the cage. Mackenzie Dern, she looked really good against. She's super tough, can pull off comeback wins. She is she does have good jiu-jitsu. Pretty all right striking. I guess she never really just puts those together, which is why I said like technicality isn't really the way she wins fights. More of just a brawler. She is coming off a loss to Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's a good wrestler. And Lupi Godinez is a really good wrestler. Boxing is also really good. She's the sister of an Olympic gold medalist wrestler for Mexico. Really good setups for both the striking and the wrestling. Technically sound. Also can bully her opponents around like Andrade. I don't think she'll let Andrade do that to her. Basically, the main drawback on the Lupi side is she makes really, really bad decisions, bad fight IQ, will randomly like shoot a takedown when she's winning a striking exchange, or she'll pull guard for no reason, stuff like that. But the boxing is clean. The wrestling is super clean. She's training with all the right people. I think Lupi has all the skills she needs to win this. I'm just hoping she makes the right decision. Yeah, she's coming off a Julia Pilastri win, but I mean, who rates a Julia Pilastri win?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jessica side of things here, I think. She's a great striker. I think she definitely can get grappled and mauled on the ground there, but just for the underdog value here, I mean, it might be a pass, but I think there's a big gap in the striking department, and I just think it's enough to land a couple of strikes that can win you a 3-round fight. I also think the stock is pretty low right now, and you can probably just potentially buy low there on the Jessica side of things here. I know she's a little bit older, but not crazy old to the point where you couldn't have a little bit of a comeback here and put on a good performance.
Yeah, I'm just going to go Godinez by decision. Not really sold on the finish here. All right, Gerald Meerschaert versus Michael O. So, sub or bust for Meerschaert, but what should we expect here?
Yeah. Well, summed up the Meerschaert side of things pretty perfectly. Always live for a sub, not really ever live for anything else. Very good grappler. Kind of chinny these days. Not great on the feet, but he is an absolute dog. He is never out of a fight mentally. He's always going to be out of it physically before his mind's out of it. But he's perfectly okay with taking a beating. We've seen him multiple times snatch up subs in the second, third rounds of fights. Takedowns are pretty inaccurate at 31%. They have been pretty clean, I'd say, in his last couple of fights. They weren't against Brad Tavares, but Brad Tavares is just like a tree trunk. He went 0 of 8 on takedown attempts against him. Mikhail O, pretty much the opposite of Mearshart. He's a good striker, fighting nerd now, high pressure striker, 7 knockouts in his 8 UFC wins, 5.27 strikes landed to 4.51 absorbed. Definitely dangerous. I'd say the biggest hole in his game is his grappling. He can definitely fade in fights too. He's coming off an early Dricus Du Plessis knockout win. Some people thought that was like an early stoppage, but I mean, Cedric was not going to survive that fight. He was, I mean, he definitely wasn't asleep when they called it or anything, and he wasn't really getting hit, but it's like that dude was going to get knocked out at one point or another, and also who cares? Like Cedric is, I don't know how he's still rostered, but I mean, this is a weird. What are the odds on this one?
I think it's plus 190 on the Mearshart side of things. Last I saw, I guess that kind of gives away where I'm going to be leaning on this one, but I'll find the full.
Yeah, that
is 95 and then minus 238.
That's wild to me that Mearshart is almost a 2-to-1 dog when it's polar fighters.
He was plus 240 like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so it's gotten closer in his side.
I'm gonna pick Mikhail O, but I would literally be the least shocked person in the world if GM3 got a sub here. Mikhail has pretty much no grappling. All he has is his hands. So I expect Gerald to come out just trying to get it to the ground nonstop, and I think there's a definitely a high likelihood that if he gets it there, he gets a sub. So I'm out slightly in Mikhail though.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with your entire logic there, but in a fight that feels like kind of a coin flip just based on style, like if it's all standing up, it's going to be Mikhail's fight, and if it's on the ground, it'll probably be Mearshart's to lose. So in a fight like that where the styles may have their way, I'm going to take the guy who's basically plus 200 in a fight that feels way closer to 50-50.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Michael O by knockout. Gets another one on the streak here. All right. King Green versus Diego Ferreira. What should we expect from this one?
Another old head battle here. Diego is a year older than Bobby Green. Bobby Green, I mean, King Green, good striker. Kind of keeps his hands low, not a very high tight guard or anything, but high volume at 6.4 landed to 3.72, and that striking differential is crazy considering how open he leaves himself. But also pretty good wrestling in his back pocket. Not really like one punch bullet power in his hands, but he'll get knockouts by wearing his opponents out over the course of a fight. He has 11 of them. On a 2 finish loss streak in a row. The most recent one was a Mauricio Ruffy loss, and that was a nasty spinning heel kick. Ferreira, really good jiu-jitsu, powerful hands, probably more powerful than King Green. Striking, pretty good striking differential. Takedown accuracy, not the best at 30%. Striking has gotten a lot better. I would say he's leaned on it more as he's aged. He's won a couple fights that are just like purely striking at this point. Takedown defense also not amazing at 57%, but obviously that's battle tested through like a lot of good wrestlers. Gets matched up with high level wrestlers pretty frequently. Diego, definitely, I'd say the more dangerous of the two, just in terms of like being able to end the fight on a moment's notice. Um, but Bobby, he has the wrestling in his back pocket. Takedown defense on Diego's side is pretty bad. King Green is averaging 1.22 per 15 minutes. Bobby's also probably the cleaner striker of the two. I'm going to go with Diego, the favorite here. I feel like I'm picking a lot of favorites, but he's super durable even for this age. He has more ways to win the fight than King Green does. Yeah.
I agree, and I can't bring myself to take King Green again, or even call him King Green, really.
Yeah, I know. I've
Um,
been like 4 times.
but it does feel like a spot where the odds makers probably know something here, and it feels like it could be prime for a Bobby Green better performance after two terrible ones. So it feels like if I wanted to play this sharp, he would probably be the way to play this, but I can't bring myself to do it, so it's probably just a pass. Because knowing that logic, if I took the other side and it loses, you're just in a lose-lose situation here. So it's probably a pass for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Diego by decision. I mean, all the guys that he's lost to essentially are actually like pretty good fighters and have really strong resumes. So
Yeah.
we'll take a chance he could be undervalued. All right, Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. Will Asakura be overvalued, or is he actually the correct pick? Find out now.
What are the odds on this one?
Minus 330 for Asakura.
Yeah, this is a interesting one, and I think a well-warranted test for Kai Asakura, because Tim Elliott isn't bad at all. He is old at this point. He's 38, but he's still very active in his fights. He's always on the front foot, or at least tries to be. Loves a dirty boxing match. High volume, 3.39 strikes landed, a 2.66 absorbed. Not super technical, but he's a dog. He's always coming forward. And the striking isn't really his go-to anyways. He's a nasty grappler, tons of submissions. He's coming off a submission win over Sumu Derji. And Kai Asakura, we know him. Debut was a title fight against Alexandre Pantoja. Lights were bright. It was too much, too fast. He got taken down a ton of times and finished. But he's a good striker. He's proven, on a world scale. Very fast, also aggressive, powerful. Takedown defense, definitely a question, especially after that Pantoja fight. Got taken out 3 times there, but Pantoja is an absolute savage. So it's kind of hard to tell where he's actually at, especially against a guy like Tim Elliott. I am going to go with Tim Elliott here, just because I think he's the exact type of fighter that can give Kai a lot of problems. He could get a whole bunch of takedowns and just absolutely just make a fool of Kai Asakura again, like what happened in the Pantoja fight. I am kind of worried about the 2-year layoff, but this is also more of a betting pick than it is like, I totally think Tim Elliott's going to win pick. Like, I just don't see what Kai Asakura has done in his career to deserve being, what is nearing to be a 4-1 favorite over Tim Elliott, who has real wins in the UFC. Kai Asakura has no success, had 0 success in the Pantoja fight. He has 0 good wins in his entire career. So, yeah, I'm going to take the dog Tim Elliott, and I think that's a fun side to be on, too.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I think Kai Asakura, regardless of what you would say about the wins and the level of competition in the past, I think is the more talented fighter. Like, the ceiling is higher at this stage in their careers, certainly. You can't really take all that much from 7 minutes, and I won't lie to you and say that I've watched the past fights in different competitions. So there's just the jury's kind of out on him. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he kind of steamrolls through this one and ends up being a solid like top 7-ish fighter in this division or something, and he just kind of got screwed with a tough debut. Obviously it was a title fight, but that's still just a huge step up in comp. But I think he's probably closer to the upper half of the division than Tim Elliott is. So I'll probably rock with the Asakura side, but I agree that nobody with that little tape should be anywhere near a 3 or 4 to 1 favorite. So I don't think that I'll be taking anything on this, but just straight up money line wise, I think Asakura probably comes out of here with a win.
Yeah. I kind of want to go with the knockout because of the layoff, but I think I'm going to go with the decision because I think that Val just pointed out, like, he doesn't have the same level of UFC experience, but I think that's why they want him going up someone with this much of a layoff. Is my galaxy brain with their lead. So on to the next one. Jared Cannonier versus Michael Page. Let's walk through it.
Yeah, this is another old head battle. We've got a 41-year-old in Jared Cannonier going on against a 38-year-old in MVP. Cannonier, really good cardio. That's probably his best trait. He's also very powerful, dangerous, switch stance, and throws really well from both. Wrestling defense is really good, 64% takedown defense. Coming off a win over Gregory Rodriguez, where he almost got finished early, just showed how tough he was, how durable he is, and how good his cardio is. Also worth noting that while he doesn't really shoot many takedowns, he does have 6 takedowns landed in his last 4 fights. So that's kind of becoming a larger part of his game as he gets a little bit older here. And MVP, pretty much just a nasty kickboxer. Obviously, on the sort of the back end of his career, even though his UFC career is relatively new for most people his age. But he has a karate background, keeps his hands low, kind of like Wonder Boy, stance is super wide, very fast, leaps into his punches. Kickboxing is really good, does everything you would expect a world-class kickboxer to do. Takedown defense, not amazing. He seems to be getting more comfortable defending takedowns in mixed martial arts, so won't really defend any of his own takedowns or shoot any of his own takedowns. He has that kickboxing base, and he's coming off the Shara Bullet decision win, where, I mean, I think we were all on the MVP side on that one. It was just stylistically a bad matchup for Shara. The speed and the striking were just a lot to handle for him. And I think this is another really good matchup for MVP. He can kind of do what he was doing with Shara and wait for the right moment on the outside and then leap in and attack Cannonier. Cannonier is super durable, even at this age, powerful, fast, or not fast, but good cardio. But he's really not fast. And one thing that MVP is, even at this age, is super, super fast. He's outstruck everybody he's fought in the UFC so far, including Ian Gary, who's, like we know, is a good striker, young guy too. So I'm taking MVP.
Yeah, I think this is an even easier stylistic matchup for MVP than Shara was. I think this could look somewhat similar to Jared's fights with Izzy. Obviously, probably not the same caliber of fighter, but a lot of the same skill set applies here. I think MVP is a guy that can manage distance as well as anyone. I think he can keep himself out of some of those potentially dangerous scenarios, because Cannonier definitely is a guy that still has some pop in his hands, but I feel like this could end up looking more and more like some of the snooze fests we saw during Izzy's career of maintaining his title belt. And I think that MVP should be able to just manage the distance, go in, get out, land some strikes, and come away with a pretty easy, potentially unanimous victory. I think that he also probably has the higher chance of getting a finish here. Cannonier's been wobbled a little bit as of late, so I'm rocking with the MVP side. I don't see Cannonier pulling out a grappling masterclass for the first time in his career here. Obviously not a guy that shoots that many takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. I think Cannonier should be a minus 300 favorite, and he's gonna win it by a massive decision. So we'll see how that one plays.
Really?
Yeah. Whoa. I mean, look at who he's lost to in his career. Like, those are legendary names realistically in the UFC, and they're all just being
for sure.
And he's actually,
but he's 41.
He has 5 title fights, or 5 main events. Like,
yeah.
Shara, we have consistently said, is the most overhyped fighter in the UFC, and we know Ian's like a matchup guy. Kevin Holland is Kevin Holland.
For sure. I just think that MVP, had he had been in the UFC the whole time, would have been in and around those conversations, fighting against those guys that Jared Cannonier was headlining fight cards against. Like, I think he's closer to the caliber of those guys than we might think, just because he was in a different promotion.
Yeah, I mean, and he just gets docked for being in that other promotion for me, I guess. But we will see. All right, Jeff Neal versus.
Hey, you got great value then.
Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Will the cigarette light on this one, or will it be burnt out? Find out.
I think the cigarette should be lit here, thankfully. Jeff Neal's a pretty good fighter, pretty well-rounded. Striking is good. Pretty high volume, actually, despite having a negative striking differential. He lands like 5 a minute. He is coming off an injury win over Rafael Dos Anjos, and he looks a lot better in fights when he is kind of controlling the pace, controlling the exchanges. He likes to kind of throw kicks from ranges, throw punch from range. Not really as good when he's getting backed up. Carlos Prates, a guy who can do that. He's a big guy for this class at 6'1". He's going to have a reach advantage. He's a good striker, very powerful. His own range control is good. Super accurate striker. Cardio is there, especially for a smoker. Coming off the Ian Gary loss, where he could have won the fight at the end there. Almost finished Gary late, but just wasn't able to do it. He was just a bit behind in the striking exchanges pretty much the whole fight. He did get taken down a bunch of times too. He did rally though, he proved he wasn't a quitter, which some people were kind of saying before that. He came forward the entire fight. And I think Carlos should win here. He's the better striker. It should be mostly a striking match, I think. So I'm hoping for a big knockout from Carlos to kind of get him back on track.
Yeah, agreed. I pretty much fully aligned there. I think Jeff Neal's been a good gatekeeper in the latter half of this division for a long time. You saw him get fights against Ian Gary in the past and guys like that. And I think Carlos Prates was a much more serious test for Gary in those situations. I think his name belongs higher up in these rankings, and we'll probably get past the gatekeeper here and then kind of try to reestablish his career from there after a tough loss.
Yeah, Prates by knockout. I mean, Gary was just the embodiment of a technical fighter that just gets undervalued consistently. So on the next one. All right, Leroy Murphy versus Aaron Pico. What should we expect here?
Fun one. Aaron Pico, very special fighter. Leroy Murphy has been climbing the ranks, just won a ranked fight. Pretty much Leroy Murphy is going to try to make a fight boring. He has a great striking differential, and that's because he's very, very patient, picks his shots well, moves pretty well, great head movement, great footwork, lights up the body, moves in and out of the pocket pretty well. Takedown defense at 52%, but he's really slippery, hard to get up hard to keep down when you do get him on the ground. He got taken down 4 times in his most recent win over Josh Emmett, but he did defend 7 takedowns in that one. Aaron Pico, pretty hyped up prospect here. He's from Bellator. He was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev originally as his UFC debut, but he's a really well-rounded guy, explosive wrestler, good boxer. Trained boxing at a very high level as well as wrestling. He has Golden Gloves experience. Only 3 of his losses are like actual losses. One was a super long time ago. The other one was an injury loss. And he's been fighting mixed martial arts forever. Leroy Murphy, really, really technical on the feet, but I think the explosiveness and wrestling from Pico are probably just going to be too much here. These Bellator guys have been just absolutely ass. Like, sorry, Bellator, but It's been Pitbull, Vucenic, Patchy Mix, just a bunch of trash on trash on trash coming out of Bellator.
Michael Chandler.
Yeah, not Michael Chandler. But I'm hoping we
Even
don't.
he was never as hyped. Like, he never lived up to what people thought he was going to be either.
He was fun. That was the difference with Chandler. He's just been
True.
fun.
Yeah.
I agree in the sense he's not that great.
And I mean, it could happen where, we get a Patchy Mix thing where Patchy Mix had all these signs of being a super well-rounded prospect and then just comes out and uses a third of his game. Like, if Aaron Pico doesn't wrestle, it's going to be a super boring Lerone Murphy decision win, but I just don't really see that happening at all, and I think that it's just going to be too much for him. Hoping he makes a statement win here because I think it'd be huge for the division.
Yeah, kind of for similar reasons as the Kaya Sakura fight earlier, just not enough tape to rely on or data points really. It's surprising that people don't really have a full read on what level of comp the Bellator fighters are sitting at. Like, it's hard to know whether this is equivalent to like a contender series fighter or some regional fighters. Obviously, some of them are probably better than that, and probably guys just outside the rankings in the UFC. But I think Lerone Murphy is a step above any of those guys probably, and that doesn't mean that Aaron Pico isn't capable of coming away with a victory here, but there's just not enough to make me take a pretty decent favorite in a situation against a guy that I know can put together a good performance against higher level competition.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get why Murphy isn't the favorite here.
Murphy is the favorite.
He is?
No, Pico's like minus 180 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Sick.
So
that's why I just can't get behind it. I mean, I think that probably shows that people that really know what they're talking about see this guy as a high-level prospect or a guy with some real potential, but just a tough debut fight and laying minus 180 with a guy you've never watched before just feels like a tough sell to me.
I'm not going to lie. I feel like these are just the biggest traps that you talk about, essentially, in the sense of just like, oh, yeah, they put this as a favorite, and it's just not a favorite. Like, it's
Pico's special, though, bro. You should watch some Pico tape. He's fucking nasty.
I remember how special.
You see those guys getting served up like literal, like, homeless guys, and then they just piece them out of the ring, and then it's like, I've seen so many situations where guys have crazy highlight tapes against lower level competition. You put them up against a guy that knows how to handle himself and things look different. I would totally not be shocked. Like, I don't know that I'm really going to take the Lerone Murphy side of things, but it's just hard to trust a guy you've never watched with that big of a price tag here.
I think just at
the price tag's a bit tough.
Going from a pure process standpoint, just fade the guys who are coming into the UFC. It's really that simple. Like, I understand that, like, we are aware of like who the theoretical good prospects are, but like I remember Joe Mix quite literally hyping up it was like Patricio Pitbull or whatever as he was walking in, like, this is going to be the face of the division, and you just watch him for like 15 plus minutes just stand there and do nothing essentially, and you're just like, all right, that was sick. But
I will say the definition around his shoulder is insane.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
That looks like those like Jaden Daniels elbow photos that people were freaking out about last summer.
All right, on to the main event here. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. What should we be expecting from these two legends here?
Yeah, I think this is a great main event here. Obviously, it's a title fight. DDP, super unorthodox. You would never really know what he's going to do. Just good. Kind of a bully. Very, very powerful. Tons of cardio. Always coming forward. Just rocked Sean Strickland for the second time. Khamzat, obviously undefeated. Just has been destroying people pretty much. A couple of close fights recently, though, with Usman, Burns. Then looked good against Robert Whittaker. Really good wrestler and good, like, just insane grappling. Just super explosive cardio. Could use some work later into fights, or at least, we don't see a ton of that, but definitely not as good of cardio as DDP. So I think that's probably the biggest upside for DDP, is that if he kind of weathers the early storm, constant chain wrestling from Khamzat, then he could definitely take over just cardio wise, especially if Khamzat slows down. And he definitely seems to struggle a little bit when fights go long, but I am still going to go with Khamzat. I think people sort of point to Khamzat's cardio holes in weird fights. I think the skill gap is actually pretty wide here. Like Dricus isn't skilled anywhere. And I think Khamzat has the cardio, honestly, and at least should be determined enough here to be able to win multiple rounds and shouldn't only look good in the first round. So I'm going to go with Khamzat. I'm curious to hear where you guys are going here because I feel like it could be either way.
Yeah, the lack of data on him in fourth and fifth rounds is somewhat concerning. I mean, I do think he's more talented, and it's easy to just look at that, I think. But he did get outfought in a lot of ways by an older, somewhat washed Kamaru Usman on short notice, and it looked like a situation where if the fight went 2 more rounds, he's probably going to draw both of those rounds, just based on kind of where the gas tank was at. And obviously it's different when you're booked for a 3-round fight versus a 5-round fight. Like I expect him to be. Did I cut out for a sec?
Yeah.
I expect Khamzat to prepare differently, obviously, when you have 5 rounds booked versus 3. So I think it could end up with him kind of beating those doubters out of that opinion. But I just think that without having seen that before, and a guy like Dricus, who is more than capable of getting a decision against the most elite level fighters, I've never been the biggest fan of him. He obviously looks awkward doing anything out there, but it seems to work. And I don't know. Khamzat is a guy that worries me a little bit in that department. I think he goes 100 miles an hour out of the gate, and he could obviously change that approach here, but it's been his MO throughout his entire career. And I think if you can kind of just survive that onslaught, he's prone to gassing.
I've got a 2-parter here. So Khamzat, I believe, will win by decision, but his next opponent is going to be Anthony Hernandez, and Hernandez is going to win in round 5.
Yeah, okay, we're giving Raven Simone picks here.
I agree with you though, dude. Like, I mean, if Khamzat wins, Fluffy has too much cardio.
You'll get some elite value taking Khamzat by decision, I would assume. Yeah. I don't know if that's out yet, but I would expect that to be like the lowest percentage of his method of victory by a decent margin.
It just seems fight-wise so similar to Gilbert Burns or Kamaru Usman, realistically. Just guys that are going to go the distance that you like. I just have a hard time seeing DDP getting finished. I don't think he wins because like his big wins are against guys that aren't like stylistically like Khamzat at all.
Yeah, Khamzat decision is at plus 500.
I like it. Sounds like some
basically the same odds as Dricus to win by KO. I think if you like that going to decision, that's a good lean. It's by far the best value you're going to get for a Khamzat winning odd. Like him to win by KO is 350 and sub is plus 130. So that's the heavy favorite seemingly. But
yeah. All right. Well, that said, you guys know what to do. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, peace, y'all.
Peace.